Well, every medication used to treat cancer today started somewhere, most likely in a clinical trial.
And now, patients in Bay County might not have to travel far to be part of what comes next. Florida Cancer Affiliates is participating in new cancer clinical trials, joining about 80 sites nationwide. Clinical trials for cancer patients can be a gateway to life-saving care.
A clinical trial may offer the opportunity to get something that's not FDA approved that may be the next latest and greatest drug on the market.
Florida Cancer Affiliates is offering Phase 2 and Phase 3 trials, meaning patients always receive real treatment. Phase 2 trials test drug efficacy and dosing. Phase 3 compares it to standard care, among other things.
Phase 3 trials, which generally are randomized where you get either standard of care or the new treatment.
In oncology trials, Dr. Haberman says patients never receive just a placebo. Initial eligibility comes down to two main things: having the right disease and being well enough to participate.
Many patients, when they've exhausted multiple lines of treatment, and they're really getting to the point where there's nothing left to offer, that would be a perfect candidate for a clinical trial, assuming they're fit enough.
But Haberman says participation is always up to the patient and comes with extra support along the way.
Many of the trials have access to a research coordinator and a research nurse, and what that does is that gives them more points of contact than they would normally have.
For Dr. Haberman, bringing these trials to Bay County means hope stays close to home. And the future of cancer care starts here.
Medical Monday is sponsored by Cardiovascular Institute of Northwest Florida, providing nationally certified cardiovascular services right here at home.
And anyone interested in learning more about clinical trial options can also search independently for themselves at clinicaltrials.gov.